Picture this, you're a local postmaster, a respected figure in your community. You love your job and you love your community. And one day, the post office comes to you and they say, we're gonna make your job even easier. We're introducing some new accounting software. Don't have to do anything by hand now, it's all done within a computer system. However, one of the first days you're getting to grips with it, there's a bit of an issue, you think, because even though you've added everything up correctly and brought in all the stamps and the money out, it says that you're missing 20,000 pounds. That clearly can't be right. How am I missing 20,000 pounds, you think? And so you do it again and again, but the number keeps staying the same. 20,000 pounds. So you do what any reasonable person would do in this situation. You call the helpline. You alert them to the fact that there must be a problem because it says you're missing 20,000 pounds. The person on the other end of the phone tries to work through the process and try and help you out, but as they're doing that with you, now you owe 30,000 pounds, it turns out. Okay, well, this is starting to really freak you out. But then it gets worse because the person on the other end of the line informs you to check your contract because you, and only you, are responsible for any shortfalls at your post office branch. That's the contract you signed, so otherwise you're going to get prosecuted. You remortgage your home, you try and borrow money off friends, but you just can't pull enough money together. And so you have to go to court to prove your innocence. But as you express your case falls upon deaf ears. Even your lawyer tells you no jury in the land would believe an institution as cherished as the post office would have a rubbish computer system. And the judge agrees. You're going up against the post office. They claim there is no bug. This is a you problem. You're the only one that has access to this software in your branch, and this is just happening to you and no one else. That's it. And so you're prosecuted, you're sent to prison, and all the members of your local community now think you're a lying, thieving crook who steals money from pensioners. Your life is pretty much ruined. And to make matters even worse, the post office employees that were prosecuting you got paid an extra hefty bonus for taking you to court. This sounds like the plotline for some sort of dystopian novel, right? Unfortunately, this is the harsh reality for over 900 people in the UK. A sad story in which justice hasn't really been served yet, or at least only in ways that will probably infuriate you. So stick around as we unravel the UK's post office Horizon scandal. Hi, my name is Edinger, and on this YouTube channel, I like to upload videos on topics that are interesting to me at the moment, usually ones I'm having conversations with friends about. And color me surprised when I brought this up with two different friends saying, oh, have you heard about the post office Horizon scandal? I was met with, what's that? And what, are you gonna tell me they're holding our packages on purpose or something? God, I wish it was that innocent. Now, this has been reported on in the media for many, many years, but it wasn't until this month that the topic finally got the attention it deserves, thanks to the recent ITV 4-part drama called Alan Bates versus the Post Office. Alan Bates being the main submaster who took everything to court and took a lot of his time up to try and seek justice. If you haven't seen the ITV drama yet, I do highly recommend you watch that after this video if you want to know more about it, because it does such a good job of breaking down the situation in a very humanizing way. There are so many poignant moments, even in like the first episode where a sub-postmaster says to his wife, don't worry, I'll defend myself in court. I have faith in the British justice system. Which just hurts when you know how it really ended up for him. This has been called the largest miscarriage of justice in British history, and it's not even over yet. So to help you understand this, I'm gonna break the situation down into chapters, explaining the history of the scandal, how it came to be, how it was made worse, how the justice was supposedly served up until this month, and an opinion piece at the end. Stay tuned. So the UK's post office has been around since the 17th century, as it was founded by Charles I, the king right before the King of Bling. And leading into the 21st century, the post office was regarded as one of the UK's most trusted brands. Don't forget, that's very important. For the most part, the modern day post office is run a bit like a restaurant franchise. You have 1% of the current post offices in the UK are run by Post Office Limited, and those are called Crown post offices. However, the other 99% are run by sub-postmasters. These are usually local business people that have opened up a branch of their local post office within their community, in their own business, in a cafe, or something like that. Now, out of the near 12,000 post offices that existed in the UK as of March 2022, only 117 are Crown post offices, to give you a bit of sense of scale there. In 1999, when I was just 9 years old, the post office began rolling out the Horizon software developed by Japanese company Fujitsu. Now, Fujitsu had been developing Horizon software from 1996 for the post office, but as of 2 years later, they seem to be 2 years behind schedule. That's a bit foreboding, but that seemed to be no matter, because as reported by Computer Weekly, Fujitsu put pressure on the UK government to sign it off anyway. And that worked. As reported on by investigative journalist Nick Wallace, in 1999, Fujitsu was told by their own engineers that their own cash accounting system didn't work and needed to be rewritten. That was the year it was released, so it was released anyway. Within a few weeks of the Horizon software being implemented, some sub-postmasters in the UK were reporting some balancing errors, noticing that they supposedly had money missing, and so they did as any reasonable person would do, and they reported this issue to the post office themselves. However, despite this, the post office just pointed squarely to their contract, which they had to sign before opening up a post office, a bit predatory sure, but specifically in their contract, it states, and I quote, that they are responsible for all losses caused through his or her negligence, carelessness, or error, and also for losses caused by his or her assistants, and the sub-postmaster must pay his or her shortfall in full. Even though the sub-postmasters were reporting these problems in good faith, they came up against a couple problems. One, the post office told them there are no errors and that their system is quite robust. Two, according to the post office, no one else has access to the software within your specific branch, meaning you're the only one that could have caused this shortfall, and therefore you are legally obliged to pay that money back. Three, the post office also told them this is not happening to anyone else. This is just happening to you, and clearly not a sign of anything wrong with our robust software. And four, post office investigators that were sent to collect the bounty, to investigate the claims, were incentivized to ignore all sorts of proof that no crime was committed because they were given large bonuses for every single sub-postmaster that they ended up taking to court or prosecuting in any way. Yeah. Interesting that. Now, you might be able to write the first one off as a mistake. Maybe they had too much falsely placed confidence in their software. Even though they were told there were bugs, they still believed it was totally within their rights to get the money back from this sub-postmaster. But it wasn't what they told the people. It wasn't just one-off problem. As more and more sub-postmasters were being prosecuted and more bonuses were given out to post office investigators, someone, somewhere, should have had some alarm bells going off that maybe this is a widespread issue. But I didn't want you to forget, the post office is one of the UK's most trusted brands. Couldn't have the computer system be rubbish, right? Let's cover this up. And so despite all of the information that the senior executives at the post office had available to them, they continued to ruthlessly prosecute the innocent sub-postmasters. But sadly, my friends, this does get much worse. What was the impact of all of this? Well, this went on from 1999 all the way to 2015, with over 900 sub-postmasters prosecuted by the post office for missing funds. And as reported on in The Guardian, between the years 2000 and 2014, 736 prosecutions of sub-postmasters took place, an average of one per week. But like we said, guys, it's not a widespread issue. This is just a you problem. Our system is robust. As I mentioned before, the shortfall for a lot of these sub-postmasters was in the tens of thousands of pounds. And I know it's really easy in a situation like this to just get bogged up in the numbers. You know, you hear 900 people falsely accused and you hear millions of pounds in damage and you're like, numbers. But each of these 900 was an individual person who had their lives completely torn up and ruined, and the British justice system did nothing to protect them. And this is one of the biggest reasons why the ITV drama exploded this back into the news again, because it did such a good job of telling individual stories, some of which I'd like to go over with you right now. You had cases like that of Jo Hamilton, who ran a post office branch in her local village cafe in Hampshire. She was so beloved by her community that when she was taken to court by the post office, 74 of her local community members showed up to support her and stand by her. But sadly, that wasn't enough. Jo Hamilton was accused of stealing £36,000. And this is one of those sad cases where the sub-postmaster truly believed it must have been their mistake. I mean, think about it. How could the post office have made a mistake this big? I don't know if you've heard, but they're one of the most trusted UK brands. And so her community members pitched in £6,000 to help her out. She had to remortgage her home, and she just managed to pay the whole thing off in full. And she avoided an unnecessary prison sentence. Others weren't so lucky, like that of Seema Misra, who was accused of stealing £74,000, of which she could not pay back, and so she was thrown in prison while 8 weeks pregnant, for a crime I'd like to remind you she didn't commit, and there was no proof she committed. And at this point, there have been at least 4 known cases where sub-postmasters were driven to commit suicide due to the turmoil that this has put them through. They were ostracized by their communities. There were cases in which the children of sub-postmasters were being bullied in school. Oh, your dad's the one who's stealing from pensioners. It's truly an awful, awful situation that very much could have been avoided very early on. So what's the road to justice looking like then? Well, I'm gonna need you to sit down because this isn't pretty. You see, I think the biggest reason that people are so upset about the story is because it wasn't just an accident. If it was just an accident, it would be tragic, sure. We'd all be very upset. But this wasn't just an accident. If this was just an accident, maybe by the 3rd, by the 4th sub-postmaster prosecuted, someone would have fixed the situation. Someone would have admitted fault and solved this whole thing. But That's not what happened, is it? And yet, from everything we've seen from the mediations and parliamentary inquiries, every bit of information that the post office senior executives were given about this situation, giving them proof of their flawed system, they continued to prosecute innocent sub-postmasters despite their flawed system. They continued to gaslight Parliament, the public, and the sub-postmasters, causing even more abject human misery because, yet again, I think they just wanted to protect that brand. It is really trustworthy, so it's a good cause. It took far too many inquiries, for instance, for the then CEO of the post office, Paula Venables, to admit that the sub-postmasters weren't the only ones that had access to their software in their individual brands. Sure, they didn't have access, which is their main claim. Oh no, we can't change the numbers. No, we don't have access. But Fujitsu sure did. Because thanks to a brave whistleblower from Fujitsu, we know allegedly Fujitsu had access to the Horizon software at individual sub-postmasters branches, and they could change the numbers and the accounts to their branches without the sub-postmasters even knowing they were there. So now it was even more impossible to prove that the sub-postmaster was the one that had caused this shortfall of money, considering they were not the only ones with access to that software. So you might be thinking at this point, well, if this had been going on for so long, why didn't this come out any sooner? Well, as early as 2012, an independent investigative firm called Second Sight was commissioned by the post office to do an inquiry into this whole situation and hopefully prove their innocence. Second Sight investigated the situation for over 3 years until they'd gathered enough information to prove that the Horizon software was not fit for purpose, even with the fact that the post office was obstructing the very investigation they had commissioned by not providing all the information that Second Sight requested, including prosecution information. But as reported in Private Eye, the day before Second Sight was meant to release their independent report on Horizon software as commissioned by the post office demanded that they end the investigation and delete and remove any paperwork associated. The only reason we know anything about this far is because someone leaked it. And to make matters even worse, since they didn't have an independent report to go to, the post office released their own report. Turns out they investigated themselves and they determined no widespread problems. System's quite robust. Nothing to see here. Don't worry about it. You can trust us. We're the UK's most trusted brand. So you get the vibe. This wasn't just an accident or a simple software glitch. This was a concentrated effort to obscure the truth at the cost of so much more human suffering of the innocents accused. And for what? To protect the brand? Real good job on that one, huh? Now, the acts of the senior executives that were responsible for this, in my opinion, come off as wholly inhuman and sociopathic, but then again, those are the type of people that get into positions like this. If Paula Venables or any of the top executives of the post office had acknowledged any of the problems with the Horizon system, so much human suffering could have been avoided. But instead, we got the opposite, a relentless push against the truth and towards more human suffering. But then again, what's more important, a brand or human lives? A salary and bonus package of £4.5 million over your 7-year tenure? Or human lives? How much are human lives worth again? All right, so now we know what we know. What justice has been served for what many are calling the greatest misjustice in British history? You're not gonna like this. Up until this month, we haven't seen much, if any, justice at all. And of those sub-postmasters involved, because the legal fees of taking on the post office in court cost so much money, each of them ended up with about £20,000, which I need to remind you is less than half of what a lot of them got charged with and had to give back to the post office. And for those that lost loved ones, well, no amount really is high enough. But was justice at least served for those who caused this? I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Evan, someone should have to pay for this. Except I think I misheard you. Did you say someone should be paid for this? Because that's actually what happened. Even though many senior executives at the post office earn upwards of £450,000 a year, 34 of the post office's senior executives got paid massive bonuses totaling £1.6 million just for participating in the inquiries, even though, interestingly enough, the specific asterisk on the bonus, you have to have a box ticked that says the inquiry was completed successfully. And it actually hasn't been completed yet. So, ooh, that somehow passed by those bosses, the auditors, the accountants, any of the people involved in that situation. Oh, they just happened to miss that box, and they just paid the £1.6 million bonuses out anyway. Some might say the bonuses acted as a payment for some executives to keep their mouths shut, but I think it was just an honest mistake, guys. Come on. I don't know if you know this, but the post office is actually one of the UK's most trusted brands. We can trust them. Now, many have asked why those earning £450,000 a year would need such lavish bonuses to do their job and answer questions about the scandal they themselves were involved in. A time when sub-postmasters in the working class were made to pay fines of 50, 60, 70,000 pounds due to errors. Meanwhile, the executives who ignored those errors and perpetuated the abject human misery were given lavish bonuses of 50, 60, 70,000 pounds. Truly beautiful, isn't it? When the sub-postmasters claimed this was just an error, they were sent to prison. When the post office executives claimed their bonus was an error, nothing happens. It's really great to see that old stereotype play out of rules for the rich and rules for everyone else. The UK does love keeping its class system so much more alive. Now I know what you might be thinking. You're thinking, Evan, someone should really have a word with that then CEO of the post office. But damn it, I misheard you again. But meaning to get it checked out, but NHS wait times and austerity. Did you say someone should give an award to the CEO? Because that's what actually happened. As reported in The Independent, in 2018, Theresa May's government pushed for Paula Venables to get a CBE, Commander of the Order of the British Empire, the second highest honor a British citizen can achieve, second only to knighthood/damehood, and that was given to the CEO of the post office during this scandal. Hey, what can you say? The Tories are like, wait a minute, did you just ruin the lives of 900 working class people and bring them into misery? That's our job. You beat us to the punch. You deserve a big award for that. Congratulations. You're doing our job for us, Paula. Thanks a lot. But that's not enough, I hear you say. Evan, don't be a yob. This isn't how the situation should be handled. But I hear you say that Paula Venables, she deserves a government job for her position in the scandal. God damn it. That's actually what happened. The Tories gave Paula Venables a £17,500 job in the government cabinet right after all this went down. Wow. The Tories are consistent. Say what you want, but they are consistent. Consistently shit, but consistent nonetheless. But what about the company that made the faulty software? Is there any justice against them? Yes, actually, the post office just awarded them an extended contract, £36 million to continue their operations in the UK up until March 2025. Ah, yes. And you're probably thinking, gosh, where's the post office getting all this money? They're paying all of these lavish bonuses. They're having to pay the sub-postmasters for the scandal now, all the litigation. Where's this money coming from? Oh, friends, have you not heard? This is coming from you and I, just of 2 years ago. The post office applied for £1 billion in taxpayer subsidies. That's right. To make up for all of the money that they have to give out for all of their fuckery, you and I are gonna have to pay the bill. It's so good to hear that my taxes as well as yours are being put to good use. This is the country that I became a citizen of. British justice system, oh yeah. But that was then. This has been an absolute whirlwind of a month for this case. As I said, this has exploded into the public sphere because of the ITV drama, and so many more people are aware of the horrific case of this scandal, and so more people are demanding justice, and we might actually see it now. Thanks to building pressure from the British public, Sunak's government finally took a break from their busy schedule of misdirecting media attention to Rwandan boats to promise sub-postmasters that were convicted in this scandal £600,000, provided that they weren't able to pay all of the fines, because if they were, they're only promised £75,000. So, people who had community members pitch in and remortgage their homes and gave up pretty much their entire life savings to pay off a false claim, they get £75,000. Doesn't feel quite like justice for everyone, does it? But what of Paula Venables this month? Well, if you guys wanted to hear some true British justice, here it is. Paula Venables has agreed to give back her CBE award. Oh, God. That must be so sad for her. She had to give back an award that she didn't even deserve in the first place. But don't worry, she's also made a statement. She said, "I'm truly sorry for the devastation caused to the sub-postmasters and their families whose lives were torn apart by being wrongly accused and wrongly prosecuted as a result of the Horizon system. I now intend to continue to focus on assisting the inquiry and will not make any further public comment until it has concluded." Oh, that's so nice of you to focus on assisting the inquiry like you did the last couple times, you fucking twat. This has all been a huge blow for confidence in the British justice system. And if the UK government hope to reestablish even a modicum of that confidence, Justice needs to be served against Paula Venables and the top executives of the post office that orchestrated this horrific scandal. And I'm not talking about fining them. Oh no, these rich have so much money that a fine would be a mere slap on the wrist, a cost of doing business for them. Human life has been lost from more than just gross negligence. If we did live in a just society, each one of the people involved would be serving time in prison, just like those innocent sub-postmasters they gutted for their bonuses. But hey, we live in Tory Britain, and the best I can do is, you see that inflatable dinghy over there full of refugees? Inflatable. I think they're causing inflation. Yeah, sorry, we're gonna have to go check that out. Sorry, champ. Better luck next year. That aside, I may be making a follow-up video on this topic as more information comes to light, so be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet to catch that in your feed. Whether you're new here or not, I really appreciate you spending the time watching this video I made on the Post Office Horizon scandal. And if you did find this useful, feel free to help it in the algorithm by doing those things that only you can do, sharing and whatnot. Now, all this month, I've been working on a massive series of videos about the UK housing crisis, but obviously this Horizon scandal very much took my focus away, so the housing videos will be coming soon enough. Otherwise, if you want to learn about how about 99,000 British citizens just saved the metric system in the UK, I'll link my video above. Other than that, I will see you guys next Sunday. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.